maybe were thrown out of a car. Like I remember a few years ago, I was in a car with armed robbers, and I was taking a chaplain course in where is that place? Is it in Zuba or something? But it's like a bit far from Abuja. It's like on the outskirts. And after that incident with armed robbers, it was so hard for me to go back to my classes because I got scared that, oh my gosh, everybody here are armed robbers. Whenever the car would slow down, I would actually think that it's slowing down because the driver is an armed robber. You understand? And I start reliving. I literally started to relive the incident and I started getting scared. So PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. It is reliving an event emotionally. Reliving an event emotionally. Cold sweats. You're shaking. Paranoia. Anxiety. You start mind reading. You start catastrophizing. You start looking at the future as if it's bleak. You start to put two and two together that don't even have anything to do with each other because you are so used to negativity that you actually start to put things together to create a negative outcome because that is what you are used to. Maybe you were always abused. You were verbally abused constantly. So you don't believe that anybody can actually speak to you nicely. So you preempt abuse even before you are abused. And I'm sure that you know about the law of attraction. Whatever you preempt, whatever you keep on expecting is definitely going to happen. So not only were you a victim, you now induce more bad luck, for lack of a better word, on yourself because now you're preempting all of these things. You're preempting a catastrophe to happen because you are catastrophizing. Okay? So PTSD. For me, my first encounter with PTSD, when I knew that it was PTSD, was when my mom died. Oh my gosh, I started having panic attacks. It was terrible. I started shaking and I would have and I would start hyperventilating. I would start taking deep breaths, but the more deeper I took the breaths, the more I felt I was going to explode. It's like a tear that's in your heart. I started seeing how she died. I started seeing how she looked when she died. I started hearing things that she didn't say. I started finishing the sentences that she didn't say when she died because I was in so much agony. The root of PTSD is agony, which becomes agonizing. It started with agony. It started with somebody beating you mercilessly. It started with being raped. It started with being cussed out. So much shouting in your home. You are always an idiot. You are always a demon. You are always a bastard. Every day, every day, every day, every day. It gets to a point where you really start believing these things. And maybe somebody walks into an office or you smell the perfume of that person who used to abuse you. And you start reliving the incident. So like I said, PTSD is reliving a negative event, but you're now reliving it emotionally. It's a terrible thing. Now, what causes it? Loss, violence, rape, losing a loved one, injustice. You know, maybe you were thrown out of your house or something major, a major life event happened to you and you didn't heal. You didn't totally heal. You know, you use other things to mask it. And I can say this because I've been there. And in some cases, I still go through that in some other areas of my life. But because I'm fully aware of what PTSD is, I, gather myself when those moments come. And if I have to cry, I cry, But you do have to recognize what PTSD is. If you do not pay attention to the emotions that come with it, it could really mess you up. Because then you start dealing with suicidal thoughts. You start thinking, why am I even here? I can't go back, I can't go forward, so what am I doing? If you don't have a strong support system, it will really, really be bad. You don't have people who are calling in to check on you. You don't have people who are praying for you. You don't have people who wish you well. You don't have a loved one. You don't have a wife. You don't have a friend. You don't have anybody. PTSD could really become a debilitating thing, and it could cause physical problems as well. You could end up with cancer. You could end up with high blood pressure. You're always suffering from paranoia. That's PTSD. You're always scared that something bad is going to happen because something bad really did happen. But you really didn't get over what happened. It's a terrible thing. Triggers could be events. It could be a country. It could be a language. It could be somebody resembling someone. It could be a perfume. You know, it's a very, very dangerous thing. And a lot of people eventually get on medication. You know, they start taking antidepressants because when PTSD has lingered for so long, you actually do become clinically depressed. Now, clinical depression doesn't only come from PTSD, of course not, but it's such a major ingredient to suffering from depression. And of course, it's so funny, PTSD also comes with depression. You start having flashbacks. So I'm just talking about my experiences and then what I've also seen being in the nursing profession and what I've seen in the lives of people, also being a counselor, is that the best way to handle PTSD, you start taking deep breaths. Then you have to start doing practice words of affirmations. Every day you tell yourself that that event was an event. It is not you. It was an event. It was what happened. And then you tell yourself that what happened is not going to happen again. Of course, my mother cannot die again like she has already died. So why will I torture myself by dealing with the pain, the exact pain of how it felt when she died, when she has already died? Like, can you see how we subconsciously harm ourselves unnecessarily? Fear is false evidence appearing real. PTSD is an overwhelming feeling of fear. You are scared. You are scared that life is going to go on without you. You are scared that, like for me, ever since my mother died, I now realize that anybody can die. I now realize that I could die, but most of all, I realized that my father can die. So whenever his caregiver calls me, I freak out. When I'm looking at the phone, I'm like, oh my God, he's dead. Oh my God, he's dead. That's PTSD. Like, you really, really haven't healed. Like, you start to catastrophize. And it's such a terrible thing. And I'm so wild up with emotions now because it is something that I'm still going through. You suffer from nightmares. You see your loved ones like in your dreams, and that's not them. It's just a figment of your imagination, but it's haunting. It's really, really haunting. You have to see a therapist. How did I deal with my PTSD? I had a strong support system, and I still do. But I had to start seeing a therapist, which is a psychologist. And if you do need to get on medication, then that's when you start seeing a psychiatrist. Because, listen, it's not a small thing, no. It's not something that you should bypass. So mental health is a serious topic. And a lot of people think that people who are mad are people who are walking on the streets. No. All of us have the capacity and all of us have the ability to actually completely go on the other side and not come back. That's the difference between you and that person on the street. And that's why I have so much compassion for those people walking out on the street. It's so dangerous. You know, when you see mad people on the street and people are stoning them and people are cussing them and people are yelling at them, do you realize that that mad person is just somebody who couldn't handle his issues? The issue became too much. The husband was cheating too much. They just couldn't handle it. You understand? PTSD is a real thing. I'm going to be back with some more tips. So welcome back. We've been talking about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. 1.5 million Nigerians have this disease. It is a disorder. And I also suffer from PTSD. I have not been completely out of the woods. PTSD comes from a very, very tragic situation that happened to you. Either loss, rape, violence, dysfunctional family, I mean, a really, really dysfunctional family, like beating to where you're bleeding. Your mother using a blade on your skin. These are major issues. A boss who talks down at you every single day. In your home, you are a demon in the morning, you are a bastard at night, and you are a vagabond the next day. So much verbal abuse, so much attacks. I was talking about when I went to massage a client many years ago. On my way back, everybody in the car were armed robbers. And it was so traumatic how they put a knife in my face, took my wedding ring, took my phones, took everything, then threw me out of the car. That image stuck with me. How about times in my life where people took advantage of me? Or when my mother died, and I didn't have the power to raise my mother. In fact, I remember vividly when I saw her and her body was very warm. And I just couldn't believe that I couldn't raise her up. I couldn't believe it. So flashbacks, that's PTSD. You start having flashbacks. You start having nightmares. Nightmares are the flashbacks that you were having in the daytime that continued in your dream. Then you start hallucinating. You start seeing things. What's the difference between you and that man on the street? What's the difference between you and people in an asylum? The difference was that you went to the other side and you were able to come back. You cried for 3 days straight. You suffered from depression and you were able to bounce back. But that man on the street and that woman on the street, like I said, her husband was cheating on her for too long and it was really, really weighing on her self-esteem. She goes to church and the pastor tells her, continue to be submissive. And it was weighing and weighing and weighing and weighing, and one day she snapped. You got tired of your boss not paying you. It's been 1 full year. Your landlord has made a mockery of you. Your wife insults you every day and your children don't respect you. You snap. You got so angry. You're suffering from bitterness. You're suffering from unforgiveness. You take a knife. You kill that person and then your eyes clear. You snapped. The difference between you and that person on the road is that that person didn't snap back. We have all snapped. We've all done irrational things. But not everybody has had the opportunity of bouncing back. PTSD is a very dangerous thing and I suffer from it. And no, I am not on medication. There are a lot of people who have to be on antidepressants. My medication, first of all, is my acknowledgement that I do suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder. I do suffer from flashbacks. I suffer from cold sweats. I suffer from fever. I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from paranoia. But because I'm fully aware of what PTSD is, I use the information to gather myself. I assume that I'm talking to an audience that may not really know much about it and you may be experiencing it. Do some research about it. Use words of affirmations. That's what has been helping me. Every day I wake up in the morning. That is not going to happen. That was an event. That is not me. That rape was not my fault. That being taken advantage of was not my fault. Being insulted like that was not my fault. Being left was not my fault. Being abandoned was not my fault. The secret is, make sure that you do not become exactly what you detest, because that is what ends up happening, especially with people who suffer from PTSD, is we start to catastrophize. We start to worry that that thing is going to happen again, and then we now start to assume things from different people. We now start to blame people for things that they never did. We start to assume things that were never said. We start to put pieces and put pieces together, and then we create this whole false reality for ourselves. And then we now start to hyperventilate and we start to have heart palpitations and everything. Fear is false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. Where does fear come from? It comes from an event that you never got out of. You never forgave it. You never moved on. When I was 9 years old, I was put in boarding school. My parents were having a hard time at that time. But you see, I was 9 years old. I didn't know what having a hard time was. I didn't know what that meant. And I dealt with the trauma even till when I got married. Whenever my husband is going out of the country or whatever, I'll start freaking out and I'll start thinking that he's abandoning me. Oh my God, he's going to leave me. Oh, is he going to come back? That's PTSD. And that's why, you know, all of us, we have to be very, very careful about our actions, about the things that we do, because we cause people pain. And in the cause of causing people pain, we now cause other people pain. Hurting people hurt people. Post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a very, very dangerous thing. If you suffer from PTSD, please see a doctor, see a therapist. I do not subscribe medication because antidepressants only numb the emotions. They just numb your feeling. It's like cocaine. You can't use fire to quench fire. You can't use cocaine to break a cocaine addiction. You can't use alcohol to break a drinking addiction. You have to go that's for me. You do have to go cold turkey, or you should go turkey. Cold turkey. What is cold turkey? When you just dump that addiction. Now, what some doctors do is, because that the addiction or the disease or whatever is so deep in your system, they now have to wean you off it, which is what the antidepressants do. So it's like somebody who is a chronic chain smoker. There are people who, if they've been smoking all their lives and they decide to stop smoking, they will suffer from what we call withdrawals. They will start shaking. If they used to smoke at 2 o'clock, when 2 o'clock comes, their whole system, their body has been programmed to smoke at that time. They will start shaking. They will start having heart palpitations. They will start hyperventilating. But cold turkey is when you're going through those withdrawals, you go through it for 21 days. It takes 21 days to form a new habit, uninterrupted. And it's very hard. The first 5 to 6 days is extremely hard. It's just like getting over a loved one. It's like getting over a breakup. It's like, you know, our whole body is controlled by emotions. Our whole body is controlled by chemicals. The chemicals control our emotions. So that's why we have to be careful, and that's why we have to take things seriously. You know, triggers for PTSD. It could be the perfume of somebody. Oh, and you completely remember that event because that's the same perfume that person had. Or this person looks like so and so. You wonder why you don't like your boss. Maybe your boss looks like your father who was so abusive. You wonder why you disrespect your wife. Maybe her father looks just like your mother who was abusive. Of course, like in your mind, how can a man look like a woman and whatever? No. Incidences is what gives us our resemblance. So we can't just ignore that we are having nightmares, we are having heart palpitations, we are scared of people. There are people who don't even leave their homes. Like that's when it has gone to a phobia. You're now suffering from a different thing altogether. But post-traumatic stress disorder, like I said, is living a tragic moment, but you're reliving it emotionally. You start fearing that same thing is going to happen to you. If you don't want to get on medication, which I don't suggest that you do, make sure that you're doing words of affirmations. Make sure that when the emotions come, for me, when I have my triggers with PTSD, I write it down. Right now I'm feeling sad. Right now I'm feeling scared. Why are you feeling scared? Oh, because Emeka just walked in. So Emeka just walked in. So why are you scared? Okay, well, Emeka reminds me of Susan, who slapped me and burnt all my clothes when I was like 10 years old. Oh, okay, so can you see how that is not Emeka? Yes. Who was it? It was Susan. But is Susan here right now? No. Susan may have even passed away. Was that event today? No. That event was 15 years ago. So can you see how it's false evidence appearing real? Yes. So what do you do now to counteract that emotion? Emeka is my friend. Emeka is my co-worker. Emeka is my producer. Emeka is a good person. Emeka will not harm me. You have to completely, it's self-talk. That's the most powerful tool for people like us who suffer from PTSD is self-talk. They didn't leave you, they only traveled. You see, because of how I went to boarding school at the age of 9 and the situations and the circumstances which brought about it, it set me up for being scared for people leaving me. Even at this age, like I get scared, like I literally freak out. And sometimes it's either I'm not close to somebody because of the fear of them leaving me, Or I'm over close, where I'm clingy and needy, which of course will make the person run away from me, because nobody wants anyone to be clingy on them. So can you see how just one thing can just like skyrocket to like a whole bunch of events in your life? I'm really, really sorry for those of you who suffer from PTSD. I'm sorry that you were raped. I'm sorry that you were in a violent situation. I'm sorry for those of you who lost their parents unexpectedly, like I lost my mom. And they say that the pain goes away. It's a lie. The effects, yeah, they do eventually numb out, but that pain is still there. But how do we deal with that pain so that we don't affect our relationships and we don't affect our lives? There was a time that PTSD was beginning to affect me at work. I'll go to work and I'll be having crying spells because I'm so scared, and I feel so lonely. It's like your mind reverts to being a child. You know, most of the time, people who suffer from PTSD are people who were abandoned, people who were left, people who were bruised really, really bad at a very, very impacting age, at a very, very tender age. And so your whole life and your whole conclusion is formed on just that one basis, or that one base. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Remember, 1.5 million Nigerians suffer from this disease, and I am one of them. PTSD. Reliving an event emotionally. Armed robbery, rape, violence, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, being beaten till blood was dripping out of you, being ignored, being abandoned, being dismissed, being handled harshly. Now, your world has become a threat, and all you can think about is suicide. There is hope for you. Remember that I always say on this show that as long as you're breathing, you have a purpose. Everything that happened yesterday was an event. It is not you. It is not your today, and it is not tomorrow. It was an event. I still suffer from this, and I still have to tell myself every day that the mishaps that have happened in my life, I also played a role in some of them. So you take self-responsibility, take your deep breaths, exercise so that the endorphins in your brain will come out, and so that you can be more happy and more stable. Don't keep toxic people around you. Keep positivity around you. Be healthy. Take control of your life. Don't take control of your life from the standpoint of nobody is ever going to hurt me. No. Be open. Live. Be like the sun, and the sun will come to you, and the sun will shine on you. Don't catastrophize. Don't assume that everybody is bad. Nobody is bad. We are all a product of our upbringing. We are all a product of our experiences. But I bet you that if you continue to be light, everything around you must shine. So, once again, I am very, very sorry for those of you who suffer from PTSD. Like I said, I am one of them. I am sorry that you lost something major in your life. I am sorry that at some point in your life you were rendered powerless. Take your power back and live again. God bless you. You will have to jump off a cliff, just knowing that you will not crash. If you're not in control of your emotions will be in control of you.
Yes. Oh. Now my dirty they smell like this. Now to throw away am quick. This kind smell fit make man sick. That woman throw away dirty for ground. Me sef go do the same this time around.
Hold up.
See, to do this kind badness by the book, you make sure say person no dey look. And then you drop am nicely, bros. Nothing will happen. Trust me.
See, if you throw away dirty for ground, another person sef throw away dirty. Everybody come begin to throw away dirty for ground. Everywhere go come dey smell. Gutter go block, road go block, and you will like to dey dab. I say no more dabbing for you, be that too. Dab, 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 dab. Yes,